Welcome to the Wealth Across Generations podcast. Hello, welcome to the Wealth Across Generations podcast, the podcast where families learn to thrive at all levels and grow together. I'm your host, David Allen. Here we explore ideas and answers to how your family can be more wealthy, successful, happy, emotionally intelligent, and resilient. Our topic for today comes straight from the Bible. It's called the Matthew Principle, and it works like this. In the book of Matthew, chapter 25, Jesus tells a story of a wealthy man giving different amounts of goods to various servants. Starting in verse 15, he says, "And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey." Back then, a talent of silver was about 70 pounds. If we look at today's value of silver at around $56 for an ounce, multiply by 16 ounces for a pound, and by 70 to get our talent, that would be about $61,600. So being entrusted with 5 of those is like having a middle-class American home in many states, just entrusted to you while your boss is away on a trip. Not bad. These 3 servants, it says, were given according to their ability. This was their spot in what we could call the marathon of life, the combination of natural gifts, applied skills, and awareness that make up where we are on the road to success. I talk about this idea more extensively in episode 5, and I recommend you check it out because it will make you more compassionate with yourself and calibrate your ambitions in a way that increases your likelihood of success while giving you greater empathy for others. Near the end of Jesus' story, he reports the results those servants gained when their master came home, starting in verse 19. "After a long time the Lord of those servants cometh, and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliveredst unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord." For brevity, I'll tell you the second servant with the 2 talents presented a similar report and received a similar reward. Finally, the last servant, who had hid the talent and done nothing, claiming to be afraid, received a bitter rebuke. "Thou wicked and slothful servant, take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath." And that last line is the Matthew Principle. And we call this the Matthew Principle, but you'll find similar accounts told in Mark chapter 4 and in Luke chapters 8 and 19. The Matthew Principle is in every corner, if you dare to look. You can see corollaries and versions of this appearing everywhere in society. The rich get richer, and the poor get poorer, for instance. While that is true, it is very simplistic and unhelpful if you find yourself poor and wish to not be that way. Another one I've heard is, if you need something done, give it to a busy person. The person who is doing a lot can probably handle something better than someone who does little or nothing. This can be a great way to gain greater responsibility, being busy. However, it can also signal to low-trust people that they can pass off all their work onto you, even work that is their own responsibility. It is an example of how the Matthew Principle can work in reverse to a person's detriment if they don't have discernment. This is something I've learned several times too often in the corporate world. Robert Merton and Harriet Ann Zuckerman, sociologists, used the Matthew effect to describe how famous scientists will get more credit than unknown researchers. Similar to this is Stigler's law, which claims most scientific discoveries rarely end up named after their original discoverer. For example, Ampere's circuital law was not invented by Ampere, for instance, but rather by James Clerk Maxwell. Dyson spheres are named after Freeman Dyson, but Olaf Stapleton came up with the original idea. There are hundreds of examples if you look for Stigler's law on Wikipedia. This can happen to quotes as well. Those famous quotes you believe Einstein said, it's possible he never even said them. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's just one of them. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Now, it's possible Einstein did say something like that, but it sounds more like something Richard Feynman would say. Let's look at reputation. If you have a reputation as a criminal or ne'er-do-well, and something terrible happens in your neighborhood, the police are very likely to pay you a visit first, even if no evidence points to you having been where the terrible thing occurred when it did. If you attended public school, you may have noticed this among certain students in your class. Contrarily, if you have a reputation as a great attorney, where people are looking for a great lawyer, they're going to seek you out. The Matthew principle can be similar to the Lindy effect, which I discussed in episode 8, where something that has been around a long time is more likely to continue to be around. Indeed, I think they may be reflexively connected. Someone who is around for a long time in a certain type of business tends to get good name recognition and experience over that time period. At the same time, someone who has a lot of business is more likely to continue to remain in business, unless a competitor, burnout, or an antagonistic force affects them. This is one of the reasons that the common advice to not give up has some wisdom to it. Whether you stayed around long enough for the Lindy effect to take action in your favor, or you gained a little at a time and that caused the Matthew principle to work in your favor at an increasing rate, many successes come from nothing more than sticking it out a long time. How to get the Matthew principle on your side. From the moment we are born, we are vulnerable. We're babies. We can't do anything for ourselves. We are what you would call a K-selected species. A non-K-selected species, or R-selected species, for example, a rabbit, doesn't need a lot of training in order to be a good rabbit. They are up and running, or hopping, within a short time of being born, doing rabbit-related activities. And there are many of them constantly being born. K-selected species, like wolves and people, have fewer offspring, but need nurturing, play, training, and guidance to gain the skills of survival. Those that gain the most of these things tend to be valued more in their respective societies, and those that don't either don't survive or are dependent upon those who do. Now, I'm not saying this is right, good, or best. It's kind of an evolutionary way of looking at things, but that is how the natural world seems to work right now. The point I'm trying to make is, if you've gone through school, and the schooling was even halfway decent, you are already benefiting from the Matthew principle. That was 12 or more years of K-selected training. You learned to read. And now, as you read, you'll continue to learn more from books and other literature. You learned how to use a computer, and now you can use the computer to do many useful things. You learned how to do things that make you uncomfortable, like homework and essays. And now you can do the uncomfortable things, at least if there's an end in sight and completing it leads to some favorable result. And if your schooling was terrible, I'm sorry. But you can still gain skills that you should have gotten from school, and you can probably get them even faster because you know yourself better. You know what's going to work for your learning style, your personality, and your schedule. I was supposed to learn computer programming in school, in 10th grade. Instead, what I learned was that my teacher had severe ADHD, and that even students who would have fit the classic definition of nerd can be merciless in their bullying if you are struggling to learn what they easily pick up. So now, in my late 30s, I'm learning Python online, and have made more progress in 3 months than I could have made in a year at any school. This brings us to the first step of how to get the Matthew principle on your side. If you want your life to be easier and every year to be more manageable, this is for you. Step 1 is to use the resources you already have to get more of those resources. This can be knowledge or a skill you have. The second step is to know yourself. What do you like? How do you best learn? Do you like to do deep dives into one topic, or switch every couple minutes or every hour? Do you like to connect ideas from different disciplines? Do you like to journal? explain things to someone else to learn them better? Or do you like dialogues for your learning instead of just lecture mode? The third step is to leverage the people who already have things. Presidents do this all the time with advisors. Henry Ford, the industrialist, once, when responding to questions about his competence, said the following, as read in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I have a row of electric push buttons on my desk, and by pushing the right button, I can summon to my aid people who can answer any question I might ask. This insight, like technology itself, is 1 degree short of magic. It allows you to benefit from what other people already have. Now there's coaches, consultants, trainers, instructors, mentors. In many cases, you would be surprised how seldom competent people are asked for their advice. Some of them can't even give their knowledge away, not even for free, because people on the whole are either cynical, have backwards priorities, or are just plain dumb. The most important step I can give you to get the Matthew principle on your side is to become an owner. The top-down trend pushing people away from ownership of their housing, transportation, career, and even their music, is terrible. Back when the United States was just getting set up, when it was just in colony form, the Jamestown colony in the early 17th century tried early forms of socialism by having resources and tools shared communally. The result? Famine, idleness, and near collapse. And this was back when failing to show up for work might mean you died over the winter. After 1611, the governor changed the setup of Jamestown to a private property system and assigned land to colonists. The end result was food abundance and the thriving of the town. It's entirely possible that if the English colonies stubbornly refused to abandon the own-nothing system, most of the United States would still be a colony, and everything outside the coast would have remained untamed wilderness and Native American ranging ground until World War I or later. Being an owner means you benefit from the work that gets done. Nobody is piggybacking off of you, at least not to the degree that the work is no longer worth it. Survival in the wilderness is good, it's something of an accomplishment, but bare survival in civilization is an institutional failure. Subsistence isn't sexy. That's why I didn't name this podcast the Just Getting By podcast, though that might make an excellent April Fool's episode. Now maybe you can't buy a business. You can't be an owner that way. Though you'd be better off exploring how you could anyway. These things are not as impossible as you might think. Maybe you can't buy a house right now without unsustainable debt. But can you buy one dividend-paying share in a real estate investment trust? Then every quarter, hard-working property managers and landlords give you a share of their labor. Even if it's $1, that's $1 you don't have to work for again. Your homework, if you own nothing right now, is to own something. Go from somebody who gets $0 in investment income to somebody who gets something, even if it's insultingly low. Find out which companies pay dividends and buy one share in a company you think could do a good job. I'm not promising price stability. I'm offering you the chance to go from an own nothing to an own something. Don't trust the stock market? That's okay. Buy a silver coin and keep it at home. Or buy a Bitcoin. The point is, if money printing devalues the dollar, your silver coin or your Bitcoin will preserve the value of your labor. And if you don't want to do that, get some potting soil in a pot, plant some mint in that pot, and put it in your window. It's practically an invasive species, it's so easy to grow. Plus, you can get mint tea and mint leaves for free. That's one less thing you'll ever have to buy. Watch several YouTube videos about how to run a business that you're interested in. Something you could see yourself doing in your town. Then find somebody who's doing that in a similar kind of place and ask them for advice. If there's a local provider already, offer to work for them. If the owner is an aging boomer or a Gen Xer who's ready for something else, maybe they can't wait to pass their business on to somebody else who's willing to learn how to run it properly. Then they'll exit with temporary portions of the profit while you acquire increasing ownership over time, and they really don't want you to fail if they're smart. If you fix things but don't have a license, offer a hyper-niche service like filling in the holes left behind by picture hangings before renters or home sellers move out. You don't need to be an expert at everything. but own one solution to a real-world problem that people have. Once you have that, add an extra service like fixing the door trim. Take ownership of something small enough that you feel you could own it and build from there. Start talking with your family about the values you want to have as a family. You will have gone from a family whose values are based on circumstance or someone else's interpretation of Scripture to a family who actively chooses and prioritizes their values. You go from a family who vaguely knows about values to becoming the type of family that actually talks about and has values of their own, and those values will grow. Remember the Matthew principle. In any ecosystem, there are 3 types of living organisms. There are producers, consumers, and decomposers. I could probably make a whole episode about this. If being a producer is difficult, and helping people through the selling and service industries isn't your thing, consider the decomposer side of things. If it doesn't offend your pride, find something people usually throw away, learn how to get value out of it, and offer to take it off of people's hands. You might even get paid for it. Junkyards, mulch, fertilizer, recycling. There are tons of businesses that profit off of what people just throw away. Find the right supply chain problem, and you can take brand new, perfectly legitimate items and resell them. No trash collection required. There are people today making millions of dollars a year getting rid of things people don't want. If you have land that's a little off the beaten path and you have no plans or little plans to develop it, consider turning it into a campsite people can rent. It covers your property taxes and provides an affordable vacation option for people who love the outdoors. Now, when do you sell and stop being an owner if you're following the Matthew principle? If you're making enough good decisions in your family, you don't sell because of laziness or because the market downturn has forced you to sell at a loss to stay operational. You sell when the proceeds from that sale enable you to be an owner in something that pays more, equips the next generation for their ownership journey, when exiting from an old project better matches up with your current life trajectory, or possibly because you believe that's what God is leading you to do at this time. So, to recap, Jesus tells us to act like an owner. He tells the story of 3 servants. The 2 who use the skills they have and the resources entrusted to them end up with more in the end. The one who does nothing loses the resources given to him, and what he has is given to the most profitable servant. This is a law of the universe. It is the Matthew principle. For unto every one that hath, more shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not, shall be taken away even that which he hath. Matthew 25, verse 29. The Matthew principle is one of those things you see everywhere. It is one piece of the complicated puzzle that describes how the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. People with established reputations, experience, the right positions, and character use the Matthew principle even if they don't know they're using it. These people often get credit for the work of others without even trying to. This happens in every field, from academia to business. Meanwhile, the Matthew principle keeps people poor because the poor aren't focusing on ownership. Or in some cases, to be fair, the legal system in their jurisdiction is such that the poor can't rely on the government to enforce contracts they make with the rich that enable the poor to significantly profit from work that they do on land and assets that the rich own. Or they're poor because they don't gain knowledge, they don't gain experience. They don't try to own the mental real estate in customers' minds regarding solving a particular problem. They don't invest in cash flow producing assets. They rely on the economy, when they're already cash poor, for things that natural systems would provide them for free, if they had the know-how to capitalize on those systems. They mentally sell themselves short and assume they can never own anything sustainable, instead of asking how they can own, doing some research, and starting small. And maybe their small is so small that to them it seems insulting. And they might fail 10 times in order to kind of succeed once. And that's a lot of extra work just to say I am more capable. Maybe what is within reach isn't a dream job or something that communicates the high-status identity with which they desperately long to believe that they are. Maybe that initial investment of time and energy is something they could have spent doing something they enjoyed. Not solving any problems long term, mind you, but recharging their emotional batteries enough to survive one more week. To benefit from the Matthew principle, you must become an owner. At the risk of sounding like some sort of new age guru, that starts with a choice. Choose to own something, no matter how small. Go from somebody who doesn't own to somebody who owns, even if they own a little. A little is relative, and maybe 100 times what you'll own after you make that choice will also seem little. But it may change your life, and getting 100 times that amount is just a matter of doing what you just did 99 more times. And because of the Matthew principle, it might not even take that much effort. Own a solution to a problem. Own knowledge. Own an asset and do something with it. Own a cash flow producing asset and do nothing with it, and just use that cash flow to buy more assets just like it. If you don't know anything, that's okay for now. Find out what you want to know and get someone who knows more about it than you to help you for a little while. Incorporate curiosity into your dopamine cycle. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a TV show or playing a video game or seeing what your friends are doing on Instagram. But if learning can also fill up your emotional gas tank, your life will be interesting to you and not something you desperately want to escape all the time. Plus, whatever you own, you tend to notice and learn more about. Life becomes more fun. Own the proactive cultivation of your family's values. Own a space and the local economy that works for your family's unique situation. Let's end this podcast with questions for your family wealth group. Your family wealth group are the highest trust people in your family that you want to have these kinds of conversations with. They can also be close friends and people you work with in your business who you think would benefit from this kind of thinking. Share this episode with them and tell them you want to have conversations just like this with them. If they recognize what it is you're offering them, they should be delighted. And if not, give it time. Time for this podcast to change you and for these ideas to work their way into your community. You can ask any questions you want, but some good ones are, number 1, how has the Matthew principle benefited people you know? 2, has there been times that you felt the Matthew principle punished you? Knowing what you now learned, how could you turn that around? 3, how would somebody who wants your success and understands all your struggles advise you to act so that the Matthew principle can be your friend? Questions 4 and 5 are for elders in the family. Number 4 is, who do you know in your life who owes their success in part to the Matthew principle? 5, were there times in your parents' lives where the advice they gave you would have allowed you to benefit more from the Matthew principle? Did you follow it? And what were the results? Questions 6 and 7 are for children. Question 6 is, how would you explain the Matthew principle to a friend at school? What if they didn't read the Bible? Question 7, do you know any other laws of the universe, like the Matthew principle? Question 8 is for a friend. How can we help you implement the Matthew principle in your life? And question 9 is a circle. Each person can take turns sharing their answers. What do you want to get better at? And how can we help you gain that skill and use it to have a better life? As you can see, the Matthew principle is more than just compound interest and has more nuance than the Lindy effect. It is one more chord in the underground network that supplies our potential and allows us to move forward in the marathon of life. Whether the Matthew principle is your best friend right now or has until now only worked against you, remember that the struggles you face today you not only can solve, but you can solve for the generations that come after you. I'll see you in the next episode. Hey, this is David. To get the questions in text form for your next family meeting, bonus content, a list of the concepts referenced in previous episodes, and extra interview content once I'm able to have those talks, subscribe to the Substack. It's a great way to support the show, and your support will enable me to create even more for you. The next best thing is to leave a review, like, and continue to listen, on the platform where you found this podcast. I appreciate you going with me on this journey.